most powerful people in history never rushed to speak. They understood something that most of us completely miss. While everyone else scrambles to fill every moment with words, the truly strategic minds know that silence is their greatest weapon. Right now, as you watch this video, someone in your life is using this exact technique against you without you even realizing it. They're getting what they want, controlling conversations, and making you second-guess yourself simply by knowing when not to speak. Machiavelli wrote about power over 500 years ago, but he missed one crucial element that modern psychology has proven to be devastatingly effective. The strategic pause isn't just about staying quiet, it's about weaponizing the discomfort that silence creates in other people's minds. When you master this technique, you'll watch people literally talk themselves into giving you what you want. They'll reveal their weaknesses, show their cards, and hand you control of every interaction. Most people are terrified of silence. They'll say anything to fill the void, and that's exactly where you gain your advantage. The person who speaks first loses. The person who breaks the silence reveals their desperation, but the person who controls the pause controls the entire dynamic. This isn't about being manipulative or cruel. This is about understanding human psychology and using it to create better outcomes for everyone involved. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn 5 specific techniques that will completely transform how people respond to you. You'll discover why hesitation makes you more persuasive, not less. You'll understand how to read people's reactions during these pauses to gather information they never intended to share. And you'll master the timing that separates amateur communicators from those who truly influence others. By the end of this video, you'll never approach conversations the same way again. Number 1. The emotional reset button. Have you ever noticed how some people can walk into a heated argument and instantly calm everyone down without saying a single word? They possess a secret that most people never learn. These individuals understand that the human nervous system operates like a computer that can be reset with the right command. When emotions run high, logic shuts down. When people are angry, they stop listening. But what if I told you there's a way to literally rewire someone's brain in the middle of a conflict? Most people make the same mistake when conversations get intense. They talk faster, speak louder, or try to match the other person's energy level. This only adds fuel to the fire. But there's a completely different approach that works like magic every single time. It's based on how our brains process emotional information versus logical information. Your brain has 2 systems running at all times. The emotional system reacts instantly to threats and conflicts. The logical system thinks things through carefully and rationally. When someone is upset, their emotional system takes complete control. Their logical system goes offline. This is why angry people say things they don't mean and make decisions they later regret. Here's what the smartest communicators know. You can force someone's brain to switch from emotional mode back to logical mode using one simple technique. It doesn't require special training or years of practice. Anyone can master this in just a few minutes. The secret lies in understanding how your nervous system affects everyone around you. When you're calm, others become calm. When you're rushed, others feel rushed. When you pause with intention, others are forced to pause with you. Your emotional state becomes contagious, but only if you know how to use it strategically. Think about the last time you had a heated discussion with someone. Maybe it was your boss, your spouse, or even a customer service representative. The conversation probably escalated quickly. Both of you started talking over each other. Nobody was really listening. Sound familiar? This happens because both emotional systems were in control and no logical systems were engaged. Now imagine if you had the power to instantly shift that dynamic. Picture being able to take any heated conversation and transform it into a productive discussion where both people actually listen to each other. That's exactly what you're about to learn. The first technique I want to share with you is called the emotional reset button. This is technique number 1 out of 5 total techniques you'll master today. When any conversation becomes heated or tense, you stop mid-sentence and pause for exactly 7 seconds while looking slightly away. This breaks the emotional momentum and forces everyone's nervous system to recalibrate. When you resume speaking, people are neurologically primed to listen rather than react. The pause literally rewires the conversation's energy, from confrontational to collaborative. 7 seconds might not sound like much, but it's an eternity in conversation time. During those 7 seconds, the other person's brain literally changes gears from fight mode to thinking mode. They go from reacting to listening, from defending to considering. This single pause gives you complete control over the conversation's direction. Number 2, the assumption shatter. Every day, people lie to you without even realizing it. They don't mean to deceive you, but they present information in ways that hide their true thoughts and feelings. They give you the version of events that makes them look good. They tell you what they think you want to hear. But what if you could see right through these unconscious deceptions? There's a psychological principle that most people have never heard of. When someone explains their position or tells you their reasoning, they're not just sharing information. They're also revealing their insecurities, their doubts, and their hidden motivations. The problem is that this revelation happens in the subtext, not in their actual words. Professional interrogators, therapists, and master negotiators all use the same technique to uncover what people are really thinking. They don't ask more questions. They don't push harder for answers. Instead, they do something that makes people expose themselves completely. Here's what happens in your brain when you explain something to someone. You start with the version of events that makes you look best. But part of your mind knows this isn't the complete truth. That part of your mind is watching for signs that the other person believes you or not. If they seem skeptical, that doubtful part of your mind takes over and starts providing more honest information. Most people miss this opportunity because they respond too quickly. They either accept what they're told or they challenge it directly. Both approaches shut down the person's willingness to reveal more. But there's a third option that works like a truth serum. The key is understanding that silence creates psychological pressure. When you don't respond immediately after someone explains something, they interpret your silence as doubt. Not aggressive doubt, but thoughtful skepticism. This makes them want to convince you more thoroughly, which means they start telling you things they hadn't planned to share. Think about the last time you asked someone why they made a particular decision. They probably gave you a quick, logical-sounding explanation. But was that the real reason? Or was that just the reason they felt comfortable sharing? Most of the time, people's real motivations are much more complex and interesting than their surface explanations. Now, imagine having the ability to see past these surface explanations every single time. Picture knowing exactly what people are really thinking, what they're worried about, and what they truly want. This isn't mind reading, it's mind revealing. The second technique is called the assumption shatter. This is technique number 2 out of 5 total techniques you're mastering today. After someone explains their position, you pause and say absolutely nothing while slightly tilting your head as if processing something unexpected. This non-verbal cue suggests their explanation revealed something they didn't intend. Most people will immediately start backtracking or over-explaining, giving you insight into their real motivations and insecurities about their position. The head tilt is crucial because it's a universal signal that you've noticed something that doesn't quite add up. It's not aggressive or confrontational. It just suggests that you're thinking more deeply about what they said. This makes them nervous that they weren't convincing enough, so they start providing additional information to fill the gap. Number 3, the authority reversal. There's a moment in every conversation when someone tries to put you on the defensive. They ask you a pointed question designed to make you explain yourself. Maybe they question your decision, challenge your expertise, or demand justification for your actions. Most people fall right into this trap and start defending themselves immediately. But here's what the most powerful communicators understand. The person asking questions has all the control in any conversation. Questions force the other person to provide information, while the questioner reveals nothing about themselves. It's an interrogation disguised as a discussion. Politicians have mastered this principle. Watch any interview with a skilled politician. When a reporter asks them a tough question, they rarely answer it directly. Instead, they respond with their own question or redirect the conversation entirely. They refuse to be put in the defensive position because they understand that defense equals weakness in the mind of the observer. The same dynamic happens in your daily life more often than you realize. Your boss asks why a project is behind schedule. Your spouse asks why you forgot to do something important. A client asks why your prices are so high. In each case, the questioner is trying to put you in the position of justifying yourself. Most people respond by immediately providing explanations and justifications. They think this shows they're responsible and accountable. But what it actually does is confirm that the questioner has the right to interrogate them. It establishes a parent-child dynamic where one person has authority and the other person must explain themselves. There's a completely different approach that flips this dynamic on its head. Instead of accepting the role of the person who must provide answers, you can instantly become the person who controls the conversation. The technique is simple but incredibly powerful. When someone asks you a direct question, especially one designed to put you on the spot, you have two choices. You can accept their frame and start explaining yourself, or you can reject their frame and establish your own. The second option requires confidence, but it's surprisingly easy once you understand the psychology. Here's what's happening in the questioner's mind. They're expecting you to immediately start defending yourself. When you don't, they become confused and slightly uncomfortable. That discomfort makes them more willing to share information than they originally intended. The third technique is called the authority reversal. This is technique number 3 out of 5 total techniques you're learning today. When asked a direct question, especially one meant to put you on the spot, pause for 4 to 6 seconds while maintaining a neutral expression, then respond with your own question instead of answering theirs. This flips the power dynamic because the person who asks questions controls the conversation. They came to interrogate you but end up being the one providing information. The pause is essential because it shows you're not rattled by their question. You're considering it thoughtfully rather than reacting defensively. When you respond with your own question, you've taken control of the conversation's direction. Now they're the one who needs to provide information. This technique works in any situation where someone tries to put you on the defensive. Job interviews, performance reviews, confrontations with family members, or negotiations with clients. Instead of letting them control the conversation with their questions, you become the one steering the discussion. Number 4, the invisible negotiation. Every single day you make requests that people could easily say no to. You ask for raises, discounts, favors, or special treatment. Sometimes you get what you want, sometimes you don't. But have you ever wondered why the same request works with some people and fails with others? Most people think negotiation success comes down to having better arguments or more persuasive reasons. They believe that if they can just explain their position more clearly, others will naturally agree with them. This is completely wrong. The truth is that people don't make decisions based on logic alone. They make decisions based on how the request feels to them emotionally. A request can feel reasonable or unreasonable, fair or unfair, thoughtful or careless. These feelings have nothing to do with the actual content of your request and everything to do with how you present it. Professional negotiators understand this principle completely. They know that the same exact request can generate completely different responses depending on how it's delivered. A number that seems random and arbitrary will be rejected. The exact same number that appears carefully calculated will be accepted. Here's what happens in someone's brain when you make a request. They don't just evaluate whether your request is reasonable. They also evaluate whether you put thought and consideration into your request. If your request seems like you just pulled it out of thin air, they assume you're trying to take advantage of them. But if your request seems like you carefully analyzed the situation and arrived at a fair conclusion, they're much more likely to agree. The key is making your request feel deliberate and well considered, even when you already know exactly what you want. Most people sabotage their own negotiations without realizing it. They state their requests too quickly, which makes them seem arbitrary. They round their numbers, which makes them seem less precise. They don't pause to consider, which makes them seem unreasonable. There's a simple technique that instantly makes any request seem more thoughtful and reasonable. It doesn't require you to actually do more analysis or preparation. It just requires you to demonstrate that analysis to the other person. The fourth technique is called the invisible negotiation. This is technique number 4 out of 5 total techniques you're mastering today. Before stating any number, price, or specific request, create a deliberate pause while appearing to calculate something in your head. Even if you already know exactly what you want, this pause makes your request seem carefully considered rather than arbitrary. People are more likely to accept numbers that appear to result from thoughtful analysis rather than random demands. The pause serves multiple purposes. First, it shows respect for the other person by demonstrating that you're taking their situation into account. Second, it makes your eventual request seem like the result of careful consideration rather than a predetermined demand. Third, it creates anticipation that makes your request seem more important. You can use this technique anytime you need to state a price, ask for a deadline, or make any specific request. The key is making the pause obvious enough that the other person notices your thinking, but not so long that it becomes uncomfortable. Number 5. The social pressure cooker. Have you ever been in a meeting where one person disagrees with everyone else, but somehow that person ends up getting their way? It seems impossible, right? One person against 5 or 10 others, yet they convince the entire group to change direction. How does this happen? Most people think that group discussions are about having the best ideas or the strongest arguments. They believe that truth and logic naturally win out when smart people get together. But anyone who's spent time in corporate meetings, family discussions, or community groups knows this isn't how things actually work. Group dynamics operate on completely different principles than one-on-one conversations. In groups, social pressure becomes more important than logical arguments. People care more about fitting in with the majority than about being right. They're more afraid of standing alone than they are of making mistakes. This creates an incredible opportunity for anyone who understands how to leverage group psychology. Instead of trying to convince each person individually, you can use the group's natural tendencies to build momentum for your position. Instead of fighting against social pressure, you can redirect it to work in your favor. The key insight is that most people in groups are followers, not leaders. They're waiting to see which direction the group is heading before they commit to a position. If you can make it clear that the majority supports your view, the remaining people will naturally fall in line. But here's the challenge. How do you demonstrate majority support when someone is actively disagreeing with you? How do you show that one person is standing against the group without directly attacking them or making them defensive? Professional facilitators and master negotiators Use a technique that creates social pressure without creating conflict. They don't argue with the dissenter directly. Instead, they highlight the disagreement in a way that makes everyone else in the group aware of the social dynamic. When someone disagrees with you in a group setting, your instinct is probably to argue with them directly. You present counter-arguments, challenge their logic, or try to convince them they're wrong. This approach rarely works because it turns the discussion into a debate between two people while everyone else becomes spectators. There's a much more effective approach that enlists the entire group in supporting your position. Instead of engaging with the dissenter directly, you engage with the group. You make it clear that one person has a different view than everyone else, and you let social pressure do the rest. The fifth and final technique is called the social pressure cooker. When someone disagrees with you in group settings, pause and slowly scan the faces of everyone else in the room before responding. This creates social pressure because it highlights that one person is standing against the group. Others will often jump in to support your position before you even respond, turning individual disagreement into social isolation for the dissenter. The scanning motion serves several purposes. It shows that you're considering the input of everyone in the group, not just the person who disagreed. It demonstrates that you view this as a group decision rather than a personal argument. Most importantly, it makes everyone else aware that they need to choose sides. When you pause and look around the room, you're essentially asking everyone else whether they agree with the dissenter or with you. Most people will support the majority position, especially when they realize that staying silent means supporting the minority view. You now possess 5 powerful techniques that will completely transform how people respond to you in every conversation. The emotional reset button gives you the power to calm any heated discussion and get people listening instead of reacting. The assumption shatter reveals what people are really thinking behind their polite explanations. The authority reversal flips interrogations in your favor by making questioners provide information instead of demanding it from you. The invisible negotiation makes all your requests seem thoughtful and reasonable, dramatically increasing your success rate. And the social pressure cooker uses group dynamics to isolate dissenters and build support for your position. These aren't just communication tricks. They're tools for creating better outcomes in every area of your life. When you master the strategic pause, you gain something most people never develop: the ability to influence others through patience rather than pressure, through silence rather than noise, through timing rather than force. The person who controls the pause controls the conversation. The person who understands silence wields more power than the person who fills every moment with words. Start practicing these techniques today and watch how quickly people begin responding to you differently. Your words will carry more weight, your requests will be granted more often, and your influence will grow exponentially. Remember, Machiavelli understood that true power comes not from what you do, but from what you choose not to do. Master the strategic pause, and you master the art of influence itself. The next video the algorithm chose for you isn't random. It's your next tactical upgrade. Click it now and continue your silent ascent.